Good evening, and welcome to another edition of Apolitically Incorrect Guyana. My name is KIAN JABOUR, and as usual, I am your host this evening. So, I had a guest on that was promoted. He's one of my favorite people, Mr. Francis Michael Bailey, but unfortunately, due to circumstances out of his control, he was not able to join me this evening. So what I'm going to try to do this evening is I'm going to still touch on a few topics that we were to discuss. But what I'm also going to do, we have a open phone line here, and the technicians are going to be putting the number up. And I'm going to be trying to take and field as many calls as I can as the show goes along, because we're going to try and make this a little bit more interactive than it usually is. I know I also took my have opened my phone up here, so have the live up. So if you want to comment on the live as well, feel free. I'll try to answer the questions as we go along through the topics. But as we get the number up, the number to reach us on here is 231 2982, right? 231-2982. All right. They're going to try to get it up on the screen as we go along. It's not that number, the 661-3399. That is the WhatsApp number for Apolitical. You can reach us on that number anytime through WhatsApp. But other than that, please feel free to call in and let us get the show on the road. So lots has been happening in Guyana over the past week. One of the main things I'd like to do, well, two of the main things I'd like to do is I want to hope everyone had a wonderful Pagua. And I want to make mention that, honestly, it really is one of the most wonderful holidays in this country when all Guyanese, race, creed, orientation, everybody mixes together as one. And it really is probably one of the biggest reminders that all of us are one here in Guyana. And it has become not only such a strong religious holiday here in Guyana, but also something so cultural here in Guyana, because even those non-Hindu people, really tie into the event and look at it as not only a day for religion, but also for Guyanese. People really come together and celebrate in their own ways, but nonetheless understand and are very receptive to what the holiday signifies. So, I really hope everybody had as good a Pagua as I did at least. And, and took two moments out to remember that, we're all Guyanese and we're all in this together. And at the end of the day, we're all going through all the goods and the bads together. The second thing I'd like to address also, which I was so happy to see, the government, the opposition, the social society groups, everyone on board with, was International Women's Day. It really was truly a spectacular opportunity for women to really be take that time and issues that they are facing to become front and center on the burners. And all we can really do is hope that the promises and conversations that had started during that time will continue even outside of International Women's Day and as time goes on, because it really is a battle, and it really is something that women are working towards on a daily basis of equity and equality here in Guyana. And it takes work, and it takes everybody to come together. As I mentioned earlier about Pagua, the goods and the bads. And believe it or not, whether you're male, female, whether you're an elderly person or a child or an adult in the working world, as much as it might seem like not your problem, the more unequal our society is, the more trials and tribulations and hurdles that our own people need to go through is something that we all will have to deal with in the end. It's something that we all deal with no matter what. So I'm hoping, I hope everybody got a chance to really take in some education on our last International Women's Day and learn something, and we'll continue to act on ensuring that Guyana is an equal and equitable society. So moving on, I'd like to just mention again, my lines are open. All right, the number oh, there it is. The number is on the screen now. 231-2982. You are welcome to call in. We're going to have a little chat now. And what I'm going to do is we're going to get the ball rolling. We have to jump into the hot political topics of the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my operator to please play the first video that I had requested that be brought up, because I think it's something extremely important that needs to be addressed here in Guyana. It was at a recent rally, I believe it was in Buxton last night, if I'm not mistaken, by the WPA. And I'm going to play a little clip for you so you can have a hear of some of the stuff that was being said during the campaign, during the outreach to those people. And we're going to have a little chat with it after. So.
A white diplomat pulled me in a corner and he said, I don't understand how people complaining that they are oppressed and they have all the guns in their hands. They are the majority in the army, the majority in the police, and they're still saying they are oppressed. What he was saying, that our problem is of our own making. Our problem is our own making. Anytime we turn those guns in the right direction, it is over.
Now, this was something that I think will bother most Guyanese. It really takes you back. It takes you back 2 steps in understanding where Guyana is politically. We read the headlines that everything is great and, there's this big push for unity. And then you go through, get into political campaign mode and you understand that elections is coming up again and you're slowly watching these types of things pull our people apart again. It truly is a very sad moment to hear that although you may have political differences, you're willing to go that far in creating and inciting such violence and such hatred in our society that you will go as far as referencing weapons to be used against each other. It really is moments like this that you understand that the APNU, group, because, it's hard for me to still reference AFC as they're no longer a part. But nonetheless, this is something that has been done throughout the years. And I'm going to be very frank with everyone here. We understand in Guyana what bottom house meetings are. And we understand that the types of messages that are spoken, thankfully for social media and our phones and our smartphones, that a lot of these things are able to be captured now, because what it does is creates a little bit of accountability. Like, for example, what is said here. And in many countries, this type of thing is actually illegal. For you to be encouraging people, into violence like this. We just watched it in America with Trump, where they had the Capitol Hill riots and all that took place after that. A lot of people and large inquiries and court cases have been launched into what incited it. And Trump was highly accused of creating that kind of violence and encouraging that kind of violence. And now we're right here in Guyana and we're watching a representative stand up representing the main opposition here in Guyana. And you really sit down and wonder to yourself, look, at no point in time should anyone be promoting this kind of violence or hatred, because there is no such thing as progress when the country is torn in two. And it took me a long time while getting into politics myself to determine whether or not this was the correct moment, whether or not this was the correct move for me. And I had gotten into politics prior to the 2020 election. And what took place there really showed and reared its ugly head when it came to the demons of politics here in Guyana. Because what we've realized now is that this country is so torn by racism, which was preached on both sides of the divide, that unless you have some balance, unless you have some way to bring these organizations together, then there's going to be hatred like this no matter what. And I continuously, and I did my research and I took my time and I really had to study what is it that can stop this kind of mentality. What is it that can stop this tug of war? What is it that can stop this blame game? And honestly, the only way to do this is to ensure that these organizations work together. It's to ensure that the PPP and the PNC work together. Now, you sit down there and you say, well, that's not possible. Or you sit down there and you say, well, one organization is trying to do it, but the other organization is not. But I'm going to give you a little bit more information here. I'm going to pull up an old article, and I'm going to show you why you will understand that this type of two-party system in which the winner takes all and the other side gets angry and creates problems and kind of divides society in their own way. I'm going to show you a clip here of why these two parties or how these two parties are encouraging that system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the operator to bring up the second article that I asked him to queue up. So you're going to really get to see, and I'll explain it a little bit more. It's an article showing that in the previous budget, the 2022 or 21 budget, the Speaker of the House was having a conversation with regards to funding of the main opposition. So what it is it's going to show you, it's an article in the paper showing that there was and is in every single budget a allocation of about $3 million, or in this case $37 million for the year, allocated to the main opposition's office. And what is interesting about this is you really get a chance to see for yourself that these two parties, as much as they will preach anger and hatred and division when they're in opposition, and then the complete opposite when they're in power, are really only centered on ensuring that those are the two organizations that stay in power. So what it really does is it contradicts the idea that the government stands on in saying, oh, APNU is a waste. APNU AFC, they tore this country apart and look at the problems that they caused. When in actual fact, they are the ones themselves that are utilizing the system and ensuring the system stays to create this division, to create this monopoly, if you will, that these two are the only two that exist. So what I'm going to do is, I don't know if the operator got a chance to pull up the video yet. I'm hoping he gets it so you can see it for yourself. But what is happening is you end up watching a system, a two-party system perpetuated and ensuring that these two organizations retain control, because, as you can see here, $37 million for opposition leader's office enough. You do the math on that, it's between $2-3 million per month. Now, let's be honest, that is a phenomenal amount of money that goes directly to PNC, goes directly to APNU. So now you sit down there, as it says, Speaker of the National Assembly, Manzoor Nadir, has said the allocation of $37 million for the office of the Leader of the Opposition for the current expenditure is sufficient. The Speaker was at the time responding to the allegations from the opposition that its allocation has been drastically reduced. Now, as what is interesting about this, as I've made mention here multiple times, is that just the fact that taxpayers' dollars are being used to fund APNU really takes you a minute of your time to sit down there and say, wait a second, but PPP is in full control. The PPP has majority in parliament. How exactly is it still a situation that they are funding an organization that is perpetuating hate, that is spewing hate, that is telling the joint services or the army and the police that they must raise arms against and point them in the right direction? What exactly is that saying about the PPP? How exactly are they the ones now that are encouraging and funding with taxpayers' money that type of organization? Now, I discussed just now a little bit that, when I thought long and hard about getting into politics, why I decided to join a third party rather than join the two main parties. And this is my prime example of one way that these parties are ensuring that this country stays divided. And the only way to get them to work together is to force them to work together. All right? Because at the end of the day, the PPP represents almost 50% of the country, and the APNU represents almost 50% of the country. Okay? And that is what elections have shown us throughout our history. That this country is so severely and almost equally torn down the middle by very, very slim margins. And now I sat back after all this time and I said, what is the best strategy? What is a way that we can ensure that these organizations work together? What is in one way that we can stop the blame game? And you know what that was? I thought to myself, if I was capable of creating a third force, of getting involved in a third force, of helping a third force, create something called a minority government, then we would be able to look at those two organizations and say to them, so here's what. Democratically speaking, you guys represent most of the population. This third party has gotten the least of the votes. In Parliament here, none of you have a majority to make decisions on your own. So guess what? Rather than look at us and ask us to make decisions for the country, or rather than look at us and cast blame, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to work with each other now. If I take 2 steps backwards and I say, I have 3 seats in Parliament, and that has created a minority government, well, guess what? When I remove myself from the scenario, now if you want a budget passed, guess what? Talk to the opposition. This whole blame game has got to stop. Every time I listen to a press conference by Barra Jagdeo or hear a press conference with the president, all I hear is APNU, 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 and all the bad that they've done. And then vice versa. Every time you hear APNU speak, PPP is bad, PPP is corrupt, PPP is this. So all they're going to do is try to play the blame game and take everything away from themselves. It's called deflection. It's very easy, okay? You just speak about something else, anything except for yourself. Anything except taking responsibility and accountability. And that's what these two organizations are doing. And guess what? If we can create a minority government, we just take 2 steps backwards and say, guess what? You want a new law passed? We'll make sure it helps both sides. Not just the people that voted for PPP, not just the people that voted for APNU. I want both of you to come together, and then you can't blame each other. And that's all it is. And people sit down there and they want to say, oh, this is so complicated or so difficult. It's not about that. It's really and truly, we have a country here in which you have people that religiously and blindly follow these organizations. And that's what they've created. And that is what our constitution is created for. It was created in order to ensure 2 parties stay in so that 1 party can have all the power no matter what. And guess what? We have to be able to look at what we can do as individuals to bring this country together. And what is currently happening is not working. Because you end up with clips like this, clips like what you just watched. I'm going to ask the operator to bring it up one more time because I don't think everybody really appreciates how torn and how dangerous this country is divided. And as much as you're going to hear one Guyana being preached by the president, and then we go and we watch the Mashramani Republic Day celebrations in which you watch the chairman, the REO of the region, snatch away the mic from an APNU representative and cause more division. So you're watching it happen on both sides. So, operator, if you can, please bring up this clip again, because I really would like Guyanese to understand what it is we are dealing with here and what this 2-party system is creating.
A white diplomat pulled me in a corner and he said, I don't understand. People complaining that they are oppressed and they have all the guns in their hands. They are the majority in the army, the majority in the police. And they're still saying they are oppressed. What he was saying, that our problem is of our own making. Our problem is our own making. Anytime we turn those guns in the right direction, it is over.
Yeah. So, I watched this video over and over and over again. And I really hope you understand how dangerous this two-party system is, because we are watching in that clip a WPA member preach hatred. A WPA member which is part of APNU. And then you understand the demon that you're dealing with here. You understand that there's two heads, two organizations that are tearing the country apart, that is creating a division so that there cannot be unity. You look at that video and you wonder, we have to get rid of APNU. APNU is a bad organization. But then you realize, wait a second, it is the government, PPP in this case, that is fueling money, taxpayers' money into APNU, that is funding the opposition, the main opposition at that. There's no funding for third parties. That's very important. Okay, there's no funding for third parties in the laws of Guyana, but there's definitely third funding, as I just showed you in the article, for third parties, almost $3 million a month to APNU. So I'm not going to sit by and accept that we are just, PPP is just doing what's best for the country, and then, oh my gosh, APNU is so bad. No. Because there is such thing as facilitation, okay? These two parties, and all you listen to is APNU bad, PPP bad, but nothing when it comes to bringing this country together. And I'm a firm believer that unless we force them to work together, we're going to end up, right here, stuck in this position for a long time. We watch all the protests and the riots that continuously happen. We watch poor people struggling in this country on a daily basis, all because of the division. All because that when one party goes into power, they put all their political cronies and all their political people into offices and into positions in which they are only looking out for the best interests of their party, not for the best interests of this country. And that carries me into a very interesting conversation, one that I spoke about on the last show, which is constitutional reform. And one of the main, I like to bring this up as something that I passionately, as I read the Constitution and as I did my political studies on my own, as I got into politics and did different case studies from around the world, what you realized was how our political system here is set up in Guyana is that of a list system, as you all know. So when you vote, when you go to the ballot box, you put an X next to the party that you vote for. You put an X next to the organization that you want to vote for. So in essence, you're voting for that list of candidates that come out. Okay, so on that list, everybody that runs for elections has to have 6 to 5 people on that list. All right. What is interesting about that is that when those members, when that party wins X amount of votes and they get their seats in parliament, the party then chooses from that list of candidates who they want to put in to those seats. Now, here's what's interesting. The first thing is that the party, okay, can remove anybody they want from that seat as they please. Meaning that person that, campaigned in your area and said, well, I'm KIAN JABOUR from region 4. If I look at my political party and I say, no, I don't disagree. No, I don't agree with what you're doing. I don't want to ensure, I disagree that you should be giving region 4 more money. My political party can then look at Parliament, at the Speaker, and say, Your Honor, we would like to remove KIAN JABOUR. Speaker, we would like to remove this man because we would like to put somebody else in that seat. So essentially, all you have in Parliament are a group of yes people. All you have in Parliament are people that can say yes. Then you have that one instance where you have that secret Charandas, and then you wonder to yourself, wait a second, Charandas said no, he went against his party. Then what happened? Charandas was removed. So yes, you may have that one-off opportunity, but how is it that that person cannot fight for you throughout their entire stint? They only have to hope that a spectacular situation like a singular no confidence motion gives you the opportunity, and then you have to hope that it's a one-seat majority. So it really is a ridiculous scenario that is perpetuating perpetuating the two-party system. So back to the list system that I was talking about in constitutional reform. One of the main changes that I feel needs to happen in this country is something called constituency-based representation, which moves you away from the list. And I try to explain as layman as I can, as simply as I can, what exactly that means. What I would like to see for Guyana, and one of the platforms that we stand on is for people from various regions in this country and various communities in various areas to be able to represent the people of their region independently. That's what constituency-based representation is. Meaning, when an election comes around, that person will run. They can run under APNU, ANUG, PPP. They can run under any organization they want. And then if they win their area, they will be given a seat in parliament. So although that person may be an ANUG representative, most importantly, they have to be able to fight. They have to be able to be a voice for the people of their area first. So no party can remove them. Nothing or anything that happens can remove them other than the people that put them there. And what this does is that it creates an accountability. It ensures that those in parliament are there to fight for the people that put them there, not for the party that put them there. And those are some of the basic constitutional reform ideas that need to be put on the table in order for this country to have an opportunity to grow and form. You know, I'm going through the comments and I think it's fantastic because what I'm sitting here and reading is people that may or may not understand the idea of why third parties are possible. And what one of the conversations is AFC had the opportunity to do it in 2011. They created a minority government. PPP then decided we are not going to govern with a minority government and prorogued parliament, meaning called an election. In 2015, AFC collated with APNU in order to win the election. Now, let me make a second testament here in front of you. Another reason that I joined politics and the political atmosphere here in Guyana is because I realized what AFC did was the biggest mistake that any organization could have done to this country. It was critical that that organization maintained its independence. Because as we all know now, if AFC was able to maintain their independence and fight for what was best for Guyanese and not just fight to put themselves in power, then this country would be on the right track or on a better track in order to create a harmonious and unifying atmosphere. Okay? Because what you would have watched fade away was that race-based politics. Because now there would have been three players in the game. And that would have given this country a chance to grow. It would have taken power away from politicians and put accountability in front of them. Because now in parliament, now that there are three parties in parliament, you would have had to have watched all those organizations consult with each other, work together. I'm putting this law on the table. I want to give this group of people land to build, or I want to give this community X amount of money to develop. And then what you're going to find is the other organizations look and say, yes, we agree with that. But what you need to do is take some of that money and put it towards this other community that is in need as well. And that is how all the people in Guyana would have gotten represented instead of one group of people, which is how the system currently stands. And that is why I made a long time ago the decision when I got into politics that if I got involved, I will get involved with a third party and I will ensure that it stays independent. I will ensure that ANUG never joins the PPP or the PNC APNU. Ever, ever. It is not acceptable. This country needs an independent third party. And I will tell everyone, and I say it all the time, in any interview I can, I will be the first person to stand up and leave that party. I will just be the first person to attack ANUG if they were to ever even whisper behind closed doors that they were interested in joining APNU or PPP. I will never be the one to stand there and allow it. And as an executive member, I will never allow it to this date. All right? So this is a little bit of a discussion, having a conversation on the need for third parties here in Guyana. I'm trying to read comments as we go along, as the phone rings, and we try to try to make sure we're taking part. Everybody has a inclusive conversation. As I said, the number is there. I missed a few calls, but if you guys want, I know I'm seeing the screen behind the camera. It's 231-2982. If you guys want to have a chat about the third parties or anything that we're having a discussion about, or even issues that you are dealing with, please feel free to call. And good or bad, any discussion, this is how the country comes together, listening to all the different opinions and listening to what people really feel here in Guyana and what we need to do to work together. So one of the next conversations that I'm going to have, and this is something that I've taken really closely dear to heart to me here, is ensuring that people understand what their taxpayers are going towards. That people understand that at the end of the day, every budget that passes, every dollar that the government spends is your money. That money belongs to you. Okay? It is not, the government doesn't have money. All right? Please get this straight. Every dollar that's made from oil, every dollar that's made from taxpayers, from paying taxes, every dollar to NIS, every dollar to PAYE, which we need to get rid of, but every single dollar that the government has belongs to you, the taxpayers. So you need to ensure that you're creating a system for as much accountability as possible. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna bring up something that alarmed me recently. I'm gonna ask the operator to please bring up the next clip, which is the clip showing that the government plans to inject more money into Gaisuko. So the government now has, as the vice president just came back from his recent trip to India, he has let the media know, and through that the country know, that they plan to inject more money into Gaisuko. Now, this is a topic that I think is dear to all Guyanese here. So the idea here is that they're going to be boosting sugar production as part of a new plan that they're working with India towards. Now, I think I can stand up for all Guyanese and say that at this point in time, we have put too much money into sugar here in Guyana. It is a failing state entity, another one. All right? Gaisuko cannot get any more taxpayers' dollars. There are too many people suffering here in Guyana. This is millions and millions and millions of US dollars that translates to billions of Guyanese dollars that is pumped on a yearly basis to Gaisuko. Every budget, they're given billions of dollars. Now, the conversation always comes back to what is it that money is going towards? What is it that the sugar industry has to get so many bailouts for? What is it used for? What is that money being allocated towards? What is this? What is the management of Gaisuko, which is a board of directors put in place by the government?
But we can be pandering every...
I will play that. Sorry, I think that was a long clip, but we'll play that one in a few minutes. Which now goes to show a unanimous decision made by the government to put this money back in, to put more money into Gaisuko. So I think we're having some technical difficulties. Not to worry. I'll continue chatting as we until they bring up the clip, the graphic. It is used very interestingly. This Gaisuko money is a long fought debate. The PPP closed down estates when they were in power prior to 2015, and then APNU came in and they closed down more estates, and now the PPP working towards opening back new estates. When you wonder that all this time, the sugar industry has not been a viable industry for years, and taxpayers has been bailing this out for as long as anyone here has been children in this country. As long as the oldest person was a child in this country, the government has been using taxpayers' money to pump into Gaisuko. And it has been long said that it's used as a political tool to control the sugar workers. Here you see, as you can tell, that The government is now planning to boost sugar production as part of new plans with India. A very simple context, but why would it not be a simple solution to, at this point in time, have privatized this sugar industry? Why is it that this amount of money is being given, this amount of taxpayers' money is being given to create some sort of suction, some sort of vacuum of taxpayers' dollars? At what point in time is that going to end? At what point in time are the people of Guyana going to stop and say, no, we're not allowing that anymore? How do you stop this? How do you stop this? How do you create this accountability? You have to be able to speak up. All right. I've watched over the past couple of years, since the beginning of my time in politics, people always being scared to speak out. During the 2020 election, I think it's when I probably got the most shocking kind of introduction to politics in Guyana, when you really realized how fearful people were to speak out. We actively saw the APNU AFC try to rig the 2020 election, and I was one of the people that were there throughout that entire process, from Ashman's building going right through, because the ANUG contested the 2020 election, so we had a hand in it. And what we were able to see is only a very small select group of people speak out and say this is wrong, when everybody else was scared, because, again, some rightfully so, some I'm not so sure about. When we saw this country start to winnow away, start to dwindle into the most fearing type situation, which is a dictatorship, I watched Guyanese, prominent Guyanese, people that have the power to speak out, stay quiet and watch, stay quiet and do nothing. And it really took me some time to realize how this society is based around fear, how they are so scared for their own personal financial situation, for their own business, for their own way of life here, that they would allow this country to slip into a dictatorship than speak out. And it really took some really strong people to be able to stand up there. And I often say it was good that third parties were there, because the PPP had a hand were fighting for a prize. The PPP were fighting for the government that they currently hold. So they were the first ones to speak out and say, no, this is wrong. And after we, the third parties, took our time to do the calculation, only to realize that we weren't sure even if we've won a seat, that we took the time to step up, that we took the opportunity to say, no, enough is enough. Somebody has to speak out and defend Guyana. Somebody without a horse in the race. And, I sit down here and I laugh at the comments that I see many of the PPP, loyalists speak out and say, oh, this is a bad idea. I'm only here I'm not sure why they think I'm here. But, it obviously cannot be for power, because when the 2020 election saga took place, I was one of the people that took the time to speak up and say, no, enough is enough. We are not allowing APNU to rig this election. PPP, through our calculations, have won this election, and we will fight for what is right for all Guyanese. The Guyanese spoke for PPP to win this election, and that is the way it must be. Even though we are not winning, even though the numbers show that we don't win, we will still fight for what is right. So now when I sit down here and I try to hold the PPP accountable in the same manner, it's very funny to me that everyone has the opportunity to sit down there and takes that opportunity to say, no, we're not going to listen to you now. Only when it's convenient to us. Only when it's correct for our motive. Only when it's correct for our agenda will we agree with you. So it's not based on honesty. It's not based on anything. It's just based on their blind loyalty to a party. And I'd like to bring up a clip now to speak about fear, to speak about the type of arrogance that the politicians have over this country. I'm going to bring up another clip now. It was at the Vice President's recent press conference that he held. And it's a short clip. It was in discussion about the current situation of the private sector speaking out to the media that there is a shortage of the US dollar and in Guyana. And why that's important is because businesses have to bring things in from other countries, so importations. And how the world works is the US dollar is somewhat of the universal currency that's used. So if we don't have US currency to purchase things outside of Guyana and send money to the US or to Canada or to England or to India or to China or anywhere else, then we can't pay our bills. We cannot purchase things. So it really puts the business community on the back foot. It really stunts them completely. So what the business community is doing was telling the government and telling the Bank of Guyana that we are going to commercial banks like Scotia, like GBTI, like Republic Bank, like XYZ, and they're saying that and the banks are saying they have no US dollars. So when I need to buy my products to bring into Guyana, I cannot pay the international companies because there's no money. So what are we going to do? And these are people that have given real life, everyday experiences that they've gone to the bank and they had to pay an American company to ship their container with their goods. And the American company saying, no, sorry, we're not shipping the container because you haven't sent us our money. But yet the bank, the Guyanese business person has already paid the bank, and the bank has been taking weeks and weeks and weeks saying, we have no currency, sorry, we can't pay those bills, we can't send your money. So here is a clip of the vice president responding to that.
But we can be pandering
At his last press conference. And this is the type of arrogance that I think needs to be addressed.
But we can be pandering every time the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce wants to issue a statement. But we can be pandering every time the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce wants to issue a statement. We can't be pandering to that. We have to look at...
we said a few technical difficulties, these things happen. Not a problem. I mean, sometimes when they're trying to upload, the team here, I can see them through the glass here working feverishly to try and get the clip up. But nonetheless, I'm going to ask them when it does come out to please play it twice so that everybody can understand. But what it really is
every time
Vice President.
Georgetown Chamber
I think they're signaling to me that they can get it up now. Please play it twice if you can.
We can't be pandering to that. We have to look at the macroeconomic objective. And those are the same people sometimes who will come and talk about Dutch disease. Oh, you have to... But we can be pandering every time the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce wants to issue a statement. We can't be pandering to that. We have to look at the macroeconomic objective. And those are the same people sometimes who will come and talk about Dutch disease. Oh, you have to avoid the Dutch disease. You have to avoid the Dutch disease. So,
and there you got a chance to hear a little bit of what really starts to take a tone of the response from the government to issues that private citizens are facing. These types of things have to be addressed. There's no such thing as a citizen has a complaint that you don't need to respond to. You are the government of this country. The people have put you in a position to manage their affairs here in Guyana. And if your response is that of arrogance, I don't need to respond every time somebody complains, then you're not there to serve the people. Because that's your job. You are paid a salary from the taxpayers of this country to solve their problems, to make their lives better. So if you don't think that you need to respond or react or try to resolve these issues, then I'm sorry. That is once again fear-mongering. You are now telling the public that I'm too big for this. I'm above you. I don't need to respond to you. No, you are the government of this country, voted in by the people of this country. And if this is the attitude that you're going to have, then people are going to have to change their vote. That is not how a government that is looking out for the best of the people respond. Because this is an issue that these people are facing every day. And they're telling you what their problems are. They're trying to do business. This is their livelihood. This is how they feed their families. and pay their employees and pay their taxes, and you are now turning to them and saying, that's not our problem, I don't need to respond to those things, and then pointing a finger at them even worse in a very childish manner and saying, these are also the people that are speaking about the Dutch disease. Everyone is allowed to speak about the Dutch disease. If that is, because that's a legitimate fear of the people. And just to understand what the Dutch disease is, just so you understand how close we are to it. The Dutch disease is when the entire economic situation starts to revolve around the oil economy. Is when every industry starts to shrink and then have to depend on the growing oil industry. So much like you heard in the news not too long ago, a year ago, when the same vice president turned to the fishermen as he was handing them $100,000 checks, saying, we don't know if we can still keep helping the fishing industry. Here's a check for 100,000. Maybe you guys should learn to hammer nails and get into the oil industry and the construction industry and do something else. Well, just so you know, fishing is probably the oldest trade in the world in history. All right? Fishing is the way these people and people have made livings for generations since the beginning of time. So for you to say that there's nothing you can do and they need to learn to hammer nails, well, this goes right back to the arrogance that we're referring to. All right? You heard it there in a clip all for yourself. These types of things have to be dealt with. All right? The Dutch disease is a real fear of the people, because right now, as you can tell every day in the media, the government scrambling to figure out ways to fix the rice industry, the government scrambling for ways to fix the sugar industry. Okay? As you're watching all these industries take a bashing, you're watching the mining industry shrink, all of a sudden you're starting to tell yourself, wait a second, are we actually just becoming more and more dependent on oil? Is probably the most volatile industry in the world, being the oil industry, something that we can rely on? No. You paying rice farmers $4,000 for a bag of paddy is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And that just goes to show the pressure that the millers are under. And there's this tension between these millers and these farmers, because there's so much distrust, is only tearing it further and further apart. Is only creating more strife and hardship in the industry. Because unless these two organizations, unless these two groups work together, the farmers and the millers, they're both going to fail. So where exactly are we going in this country? Where exactly are we going to be able to at any point in time stand independently as citizens? Because all I'm watching happening is us becoming more dependent on the oil industry, and then what? All of a sudden we're begging for more handouts from the government. 750,000 people earning more money per day, earning more money per capita than Saudi Arabia. Okay, it's a simple Google search. We have more found reserves of oil per person, per capita, than Saudi Arabia, one of the richest countries in the world. That is how rich this country is. Yet every day, and this is money already coming in, almost 10 million US per day, right now as we speak. As I'm speaking here, millions of US dollars are being pumped into the Natural Resource Fund account here in Guyana, for Guyana. So my question is, why is the government not spending that money to alleviate people out of poverty, but instead giving them $4,000 for a bag of paddy? Why is it that we are watching the fishing industry crumble? Why is it that the cash crop industry, it is so expensive to produce vegetables now that we are pricing ourselves out of world markets? That the people here are struggling to make ends meet. Food grown here in Guyana is too expensive for Guyanese to eat. Explain that. Yet we're going to sit down here and pretend like everything is great. And what the politicians are great at is discussing everything under the sun. They're going to give you every single, oh, we're working on that. Don't worry. We're going to fix that. Don't worry. Yet they're the ones creating the problems. Much like this nursing situation going on. Much like this medical situation going on. We in this country have a public medical health system in which healthcare is state-run. Yes, there are private hospitals that are very expensive. But for majority of the population, we depend, and majority of taxpayers' dollars, we spend it on our health system. Yet, all we have are nurses and doctors leaving this country, not just because of pay. It is a very large factor, because they are probably the lowest paid in the region. but more so because of their working conditions. Because these people are put in positions now where they are working 12, 13, 14, 15 hours a day, get little to no respect, are put under contract that they don't have any choice but to work for the government, for the public health system. And guess what they do? They take their profession, they take their education, and they leave. Just last month, ask any doctor in the public health system, over 30, a memo was sent out, over 30 nurses quit. 30. More nurses are quitting. And then we have here, I'm going to ask the operator to bring it up. The government themselves are again, once again, stating here we are, we need more nurses. We need to train 1,500 medical personnel here in Guyana over the next 2 years. Well, yes, obviously you need to train 1,500 medical personnel because more are leaving than are coming to work here. More are leaving Guyana than are being trained. So you are creating the problem. You cannot create a problem and then put a headline out as though you are the solution to the problem. Here it is. Guyana needs at least 1,500 new healthcare workers in 2 years. Now ask yourself, where are the healthcare workers going? Why is it that these healthcare workers are needed? Where are all the healthcare workers that were once here? Where are all the healthcare workers that we've trained throughout the years? All the doctors that went to Cuba, all the nurses, the registered nurses that were here. Guess what? Ups and leaving, heading for England, heading for Canada and America that have open calls for them, paying them 10 times what they're getting here and giving them a better standard of living. So you've created a problem by not taking care of your medical personnel, not paying them properly. People in the hospitals are dying because of the quality of service and the conditions that these doctors and nurses need to work in. Long hours, little pay, no sleep, little respect. And now you release a statement like that saying Guyana needs more nurses, Guyana needs 1,500 medical personnel. Obviously, you have chased all the others away. And the same for engineers. The only reason engineers in this country is because of the oil industry. So now I continue to ask, at this point in time, when are we going to realize that this two-party system is what is tearing this country apart? When is it that we are going to realize that this majority winner take all, where one party, either PNC or PPP, rule this country, and after 57 years go onward, we are still ending up in this position? This country has not had a chance to grow, and then you watch, oh, look at all these big roads being built. Look at all of these infrastructure projects that we're doing that crumbling every 2 months so we can give back another contract. Now you wonder to yourself, are Guyanese lives getting better? 3 years into this government's term, do you feel like your life is better? And if you do, that's great. I appreciate that you feel that your life is better. But when you step out of your door, I want you to ask yourself that. I want you to walk into the public hospital and ask if those teachers, nurses and doctors, I want you to walk into the schools and ask if those teachers are doing better. I want you to look at the policemen and ask if they are doing better. If corruption has ended, if their salaries are still not $300 a month, $6,000 to $7,000 to $8,000 a month, when nobody can live on that with the cost of living. Don't create problems and then pretend to be the solution. And that is what the two-party system is creating. On that note, I'm sorry, I do have a guest. I'm on my way out to Essequibo tomorrow. So all of the viewers, if you are from Essequibo and you're viewing, please reach out to me on Facebook. You are more than welcome to give me a call. And if you're in the Essequibo area, anywhere along the coast from Supanam to Charity, I'll be there tomorrow and this weekend. I'll be happy to meet with you and chat. I think that one of the most important aspects of understanding what's going on in Guyana is to really take your time and take a step out of Georgetown and in this little bubble that we live in here and really see and understand what every part of this country is dealing with, all the struggles of all Guyanese across the country are dealing with. And then because all these citizens need to be taken care of equally, need to be given equal opportunity. So I'll be in Essequibo all weekend. I'm coming out there. Please reach out to me. I'll be happy to have a chat with you if there's anything that we can do, as ANUG is going into Parliament soon. We're trying to gather information in order to make sure that we can represent you properly. Even whether you voted for us or not, it's important that we go in there and represent all Guyanese. It's not just about one party. It's not just about who support us. It's about everyone. And that is what a balanced system creates. That is what balance in Parliament creates. That is why the third party is necessary in any political atmosphere. All right? So, once again, my name is KIAN JABOUR on this beautiful Friday evening. I'd like to thank you all for joining me. I'd like to encourage you all to please reach out to me anytime on Facebook. You can reach me personally as well. Please message Apolitical. Please share the video. And if you can join me next week, Friday, right here, same time, same place, I have a very interesting surprise for you. I have a very nice guest that will be joining me to speak about some very interesting things here happening in Guyana. So once again, my name is KIAN JABOUR, and thank you for watching Apolitically Incorrect Guyana. Take care.